Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Uh, I will call the meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. It is 6:41. And we will start, if everybody will stand up with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Amanda, you may lead the flag
Around the corner.
around the corner. Okay.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. May we have a roll call of the members, please?
Rosaline Philippe,
Here.
Michael McDermott,
Here.
Alina Medina, Blythe Pierre Lewis,
Here.
Evan Shields, Nakisha Williams, Lumana Joseph.
present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. And with that being said, and I guess Mr. Hell will do the announcement to the audience, please.
Thank you. This is a summary of the quasi-judicial procedures applicable tonight. These rules apply to applications on specific parcels of land, like the special exceptions and variances on the agenda. The board will sit like a court, hence the term quasi-judicial, reviewing the facts presented at the hearing, applying the adopted rules as explained by staff in the staff report and verbally. Board members can make site visits, but must disclose the evidence upon which they intend to rely from that visit. Board members will disclose at the beginning of each hearing whether they have had communications with individuals on behalf of the applicant or otherwise, including who the communication was with and what the topic of the discussion was. All persons intending to speak to the board will be sworn by the clerk. The staff will make a presentation and the board may ask questions. The applicant will make a presentation, including expert witnesses, if any, and the board may then ask questions. When the public hearing is open, the public can make comments on the application limited to 2 minutes each. Citizen testimony must be fact-based, not opinion. The board may ask questions, and the applicant's attorney, if any, may also ask questions. Members of the public can decline to be cross-examined. The board deliberates based upon the evidence presented. The board's decision must be based on competent, substantial evidence, meaning based on the record, staff presentations, expert presentations, and fact-based comments by citizens according to the standards for approval set forth in City Code. The board may approve, deny, or continue the item. While staff previously read into the record emailed or mailed comments, we have concluded that this is improper in quasi-judicial proceedings, as the person sending the comments is not sworn and there is no opportunity for cross-examination. Written comments submitted before the meeting are part of the record and available for review by the board. Lastly, we ask each of you to treat this proceeding with respect and proper decorum. No calling out, interrupting speakers, or disrupting the proceeding. Please give this proceeding the same dignity and respect as if you were in court. Disruptions are prohibited and enforceable pursuant to the City Code. Please also silence your cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that said, we will, the clerk will go ahead and have everyone set up who will testify tonight or speak on any of the items that's going to be in front of the board, and the oath will be administered.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings? Okay.
Thank you. Do we have an amendment to the agenda?
No.
Thank you. Approval of minutes from September 21st. So if you had a chance to
So
review.
move.
Moved by Mr. McDermott. I need a second.
I second.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Joseph. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll handle communications with each item, Mr. Hell, I understand? Okay. We don't have any continued cases, so we're going to move on with new cases. And first on our list is special exception -11-22.
Madam Chair.
Permit, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to let you know, staff has discussed the idea of combining the first three items for presentation and discussion. We would vote on them separately, though.
Okay,
So if you can read all three,
Okay.
first three into the
I will do
record.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, the items are SE-11-22, special exception to permit a nightclub use at 13840 Northwest 6th Court. And the second one is which is a variance, -19-22, to a minimum distance separation for the nightclub at the same address, 13840 Northwest 6th Avenue. And I believe they have one more, which is another variance, V-20-22, and that's a variance to the hours during which the consumption and sales are allowed for alcoholic beverages at 13840 Northwest 6th Court. Great, Mr. Palmer.
Good evening, the board. Before I begin, I just want to direct your attention to the agenda package that was on your desk. The last page is correspondence from the North Miami Police Department regarding this special exception. All right, starting with our first item for this address, special exception to permit a nightclub use at 13840 Northwest, 6th Court. Said special exception is to be reviewed under the criteria set forth in Article 3, Division 5, Section 3-504 of the LDRs. I'm going to start off by reading the definition of a nightclub as per our LDRs, so we're all oriented with regards to the discussions to follow. The LDR defines a nightclub as a restaurant, dining room, or other establishment which operates after 11 p.m., where food and/or alcoholic beverages are licensed to be sold and consumed on the premises, and where music, dance, floor shows, and other forms of entertainment are provided for guests and patrons with or without admission fees. As such, the applicant is seeking a special exception to permit a nightclub use within the existing property structure at the property located at 1384 Northwest 6th Court. Providing a bit of background, the property is owned and operated by Deluxe Place LLC, is an existing banquet hall event venue, and they are looking to expand their operation of business to include nightclub uses, as per the definition of the LDRs. The banquet hall will be available to rent 7 days a week, and through this application may be open daily up to 4 a.m. It is important to note that the applicant is also seeking a variance, seeking two other variances for the same property. As discussed before, they're seeking a variance to deviate from the time constraints from which the sale and consumption of alcohol can be had, and a variance to deviate from the minimum distance separation for the sales of alcohol from other uses. With regard other uses in the C1 district. With regards to the physical context, the site totals at approximately 6,500 square feet. The building itself has a floor area of 2,717 square feet and is located in the C1 district. Important to note that this site was subject to an administrative site plan by the Community Planning and Development Department, approved and granted in February 2022. This administrative approval permits the existing banquet hall use, as it is today, up to 11 p.m. daily. Through the previous administrative approval, the applicant provided a parking agreement by which they have secured 11 spaces off-site and in combination with the existing 4 spaces on-site for a total of 15 parking spaces. To date, there are no open unattended code violations. With regards to the physical context of the property and the surroundings, all the surrounding lots are in the C1 commercial district. The site itself is in the C1 district. To the north is a single-family dwelling that is non-conforming and, based on staff's analysis, is functioning as a commercial business. To the south is a warehouse and light manufacturing uses. To the east is Northwest 6th Court and the I-95 expressway. And then to the west is Northwest 6th Court laneway and commercial retail uses that front onto Northwest 7th Avenue. On the slide that you're seeing on the screen right now shows the subject site highlighted in red and the off-site parking area highlighted in dashed green. That's the area that has the agreement for 11 parking spaces as per the administrative site plan approval. With regards to the analysis, staff reviews the applicant request in light of Section 3-504, a 6 criteria that guides the applicable standards for special exceptions. The staff found that the applicant's request meets 4 of the 6 of the special exception criteria. In the interest of time, would the board rather me read through each of the 6 criteria or only the 4 that were met? Or the 2 that were not met?
Board members, what's your pleasure? Read the 4 or read
Through the chair, I would suggest just reading the 2 that were not met.
Okay. Anyone have in agreement? The 2 not met, okay.
All right, I'll proceed with the 2 that were not met. On the screen, they'll correlate with the letter C. Starting off, are there adequate parking areas and off-street truck loading areas for the anticipated number of occupants, employees, patrons, and the layout of the parking is convenient and conducive to safe operation? Staff found that the answer to this question is no. The property contains 4 parking spaces on site with loading areas towards the back. To the rear, the applicant has provided a parking agreement for 11 parking spaces to the adjacent property for the hours of 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. Staff notes that the applicant and owner has indicated in their letter of intent that the premises will be leased to lessors for private events, and the space itself will not be open to the public in the same manner as a nightclub. Notwithstanding that comment, the aforementioned, staff is of the opinion that due to the leasing nature of the banquet hall, there's a potential for future lessors to host large-scale non-private events that would in fact align with the operations of a nightclub. As such, it is incumbent on staff to review the parking conditions, supply, and future demand in the most conservative lens, and in this case, that would be in the lens of a nightclub. The LDR requires 6 spaces for every 50 square feet of customer service area for nightclubs. Based on the property's floor area of 2,717 square feet, or 2,713, square feet, the requested nightclub use would require 261 parking spaces. The existing site and parking agreement in place provide for 15 parking spaces. As such, there's a shortfall of 246 parking spaces. The second item that was not met in the criteria was item F on your screen. Will the proposed special exception constitute an appropriate use of the area and will not substantially injure or detract from the use of the surrounding property or from the character of the neighborhood? Staff found the answer to this to be no. While in principle the proposed nightclub appears to be isolated from other sensitive uses, however, the proposed nightclub does not comply with the minimum distance separation regulations as stipulated in Section 5-908. Required from religious institutions, schools, residential uses, and other similar uses. Conversely, the nightclub would require a Board of Adjustment variance for the distance separation, and this variance has been tabled for discussion today on today's agenda. In conclusion, with regards to the 2 items that were not met, the 2 criteria that were not met, in light of these findings, staff recommends that the Board of Adjustment deny the requested special exception, as the special exception requires all 6 criteria to be met. However, if the board does move in an action of approval, staff recommends 8 conditions that would govern that approval. They're on your screen, but I will read them through. These 8 conditions reappear through the other items on our agenda tonight, but I want to go through them now in detail so that we're all on the same page. The first condition will be that pursuant to Section 5-1401 of the Code, a parking agreement is prepared and recorded in the public records of Miami-Dade County for the provision of 246 parking spaces, or for the parking spaces required to satisfy the ratio of 6 spaces per 50 square feet of customer service area. Condition number 2, that pursuant to Section 5-907, a minimum distance separation variance is obtained through the Board of Adjustment, which is tabled for discussion tonight. Condition number 3, that except the applicant is granted a BOA variance to allow a deviation of the hours which sales are allowed and consumption of alcoholic beverages, the applicant must comply with the sale and consumption of alcoholic beverage standards in 5-913. Essentially, they need to receive the variance for the hour sales, deviation from the hour sales tonight as well, for that condition to be met. Condition number 4, that the applicant obtain a musical and entertainment license that requires approval from the city manager, or designee. Condition 5, that no sales, serving of, or consumption of any alcoholic beverages shall occur outside the establishment. Condition number 6, that during the nightclub hours of operation or any special events, parties, celebrations, festivities, ceremonies, or etc., no loitering, gathering, standing, waiting in vehicles, etc., shall be allowed at any time on site or in the off-site parking areas. Condition number 7, that signage is clearly posted that states no loitering, gathering, standing, waiting in vehicles is permitted. And condition number 8, that security staff shall be present, which may include an off-duty City of North Miami police officer, during all events to monitor the site to prevent loitering, gathering, standing, waiting in vehicles, or consumption of alcoholic beverages outside of the establishment. So those 8 conditions apply to this special exception, but they will reappear in different iterations throughout the other items. As we were hearing all of them together, I'll move on to the variance portion. Variance 19-22, a variance to the minimum distance separation for a nightclub use at 13840 Northwest 6th Court. This item is to be reviewed under the criteria set forth in Article 3, Division 5, Section 3-504, and Section 5-908 of the LDRs. Section 5-908 and 5-909 establishes that establishments involving alcoholic beverages licenses, specifically nightclubs, are required specific distance separations unless otherwise obtained through a variance approval by the Board of Adjustment. It's important to note that, again, this application is proceeding concurrently with the special exception and with the variance requiring that they deviate from the hours of sale and consumption of alcohol in the C1 district. Regarding background, most of the elements remain the same. The banquet hall will be available at least 7 days a week, and through the approval of these items, up to 4 a.m. daily. As such, the applicant is requesting in this specific variance to allow the sale of alcohol beverages within a nightclub use within the existing structure on the property that is within 2,500 feet of a religious institution and a school, and within 1,500 feet of a residential use and similar use. So on screen, you're going to see a graphic that depicts the existing distances from the subject site, the proposed use, and the sensitive uses that are outlined in Section 5-908. The first one being 105 feet from single-family uses to the east, which are across the I-95. The second one would be 260 feet from a religious institution. In this case, it's the Vineyard Church. 465 feet from school or educational institution, the Northwest Christian Academy, and 1,430 feet from a similar use. In this case, it's the MAG Banquet Hall to the south. With regards to the analysis of the variance, staff has reviewed the request with regards to the 6 criteria set forth in Section 3-606. I'm going to pose the question to the board again. Would you like me to read all 6 criteria or the 2 criteria that were met by the applicant?
All of them,
You want all of them this time?
yeah.
All right, I'll proceed with all. So the first criteria, I'm going to bring up the list for you. So on the screen, the 2 highlighted ones are the ones that were met. So the first criteria is special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. Staff found the answer to this no, that no peculiar conditions exist. Criteria number 2, the unusual circumstance or condition necessitating the variance requests are present in the neighborhood and are not unique to the property. Staff found that yes, no properties within this area can meet the distance separation requirements of Section 5-908. The code actually anticipates that the variances will be required to permit these requested uses. In the case of this specific application, the subject property is located in an area that would appear to be that is removed from the main corridor and separated from separate sensitive uses by Northwest 7th Avenue and the I-95 freeway to the east. And these roadways act as buffer for noise and light pollution and will direct traffic from the business away from residential areas. It is important to note that the non-conforming residential property to the north is functioning as it would appear as a business, and we did not consider this in our analysis as a residential use. Criteria number 3, that the requested variance maintains the basic intent and purpose of the subject regulations, particularly as it affects the stability and appearance of the neighborhood. Staff found the answer to this to be yes. The requested variance maintains the basic intent of the subject regulations in that the subject property is located within a C1 district, And in that area is particularly characterized by light industrial and commercial uses that front onto Northwest 7th Avenue. The neighborhood is separated again on the west side with the Northwest 7th Avenue, and on the east side by the I-95. And this results in a situation that the property is surrounded by other commercial uses and is pulled away from residential areas. Criteria we're going on number 3. The literal interpretation of the provisions of these LDRs would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other property in the same zoning district under the terms of these LDRs. Staff found the answer to this as no. The literal interpretation of the provisions of the LDRs doesn't deprive this property of any other rights for properties in the C1 zoning district. Condition number 5, or rather criteria number 5, the variance requested is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of land, structure, or building. Staff found no, the existing building and business can function in its existing capacity as a banquet hall without the requested variance. However, staff notes the intent of the requested variance is ancillary to the existing permitted banquet hall, and as such is arguably a minor variance, which will allow the applicant to expand their existing business in an appropriate manner. And criteria number 6, the granting of this variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the LDRs, and such variance will not be injurious to the areas involved. This criteria is a bit more complex. Staff responded no. The requested variance seeks to locate a use that is considered non-compatible closer to sensitive uses as defined by the LDRs. While the requested variance may uphold the general intent of the C1 zone that it is within, the use in and of itself supports the underlying permitted use of a banquet hall. There may be an opportunity or circumstances where the proposed uses will infringe on the sensitive uses that is within the separation distance areas. As such, this request may risk undermining the harmony and general intent of the LDRs with regards to the neighboring zoning districts, and as identified, and may be injurious to the nearby neighborhood as identified by the North Miami Police Department. Having said all that, and staff has reviewed all of the criteria, and as such, the request only satisfies 2. In light of these findings, staff recommends denial to the board. Should staff decide to move in approval for this item, should board decide to move in approval, staff recommends the 4 following conditions: that prior to the operation and commencement of business, that the applicant receives building permits, certificate of use, and building tax receipts as required, as well as alcohol beverage licenses. That the applicant also obtain a musical and entertainment license. That the applicant receives or is granted a BOA that allows a deviation for the hours of sale for alcohol and consumption of alcohol. And lastly, that the security staff, which may include the off-duty City of North Miami Police officer, be present during all events to monitor the property for loitering and consumption of alcohol outside of the establishment. All right, moving along to V-20-22. This variance is for the variance to hours which consumption and sales are allowed for alcoholic beverages at 13840 Northwest 6th Court. This is pursuant to Section 5-916 and should be reviewed under the criteria of Section 3-606. For the context of this portion of the code, Section 5-913 A and B speaks to the hours during which sales and consumption of alcoholic beverages are permitted. The code states that it shall be unlawful for any person to purchase alcoholic beverages between the hours of 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. Monday to Friday, and between hours of 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. It shall be unlawful for a person to consume for any licensee and any manager, agent, or employee of any licensee to permit a person to consume any alcoholic beverages between the hours of 1:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. Monday to Friday, and between the hours of 2:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. The applicant is hereby seeking a variance to permit the sale and consumption of alcohol on the property from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the slide. For this variance, we have 6 criteria as well, which are to be reviewed under the section 3-606, which staff has done and found that they meet 2 of the 6 criteria. Again, I'm going to pose the question to the board. Should I read through all 6 criteria or the 2 that they have met?
Just the 2, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the 2, Cameron.
All right, in the case of with regards to the hours for alcoholic beverages, the 2 that were met are highlighted on your screen as criteria number 3, that the requested variance maintains the basic intent and purpose of the subject regulations, particularly as it affects the stability and appearance of the neighborhood. Staff found that yes, the requested variance maintains the basic intent and purpose of the subject regulations. The stability nor the appearance of the neighborhood would be affected with the following mitigations. Now, these mitigations are very similar to the conditions of all the previous 2 variances, or the 2 items. I'll read them in your hearing. First, that no sales, serving, or consumption of any alcoholic beverages shall occur outside the establishment. 2, that during the banquet hall's hours of operation, no loitering or gathering on or off-site shall be permitted. That signage is clearly posted that states that no loitering gathering is permitted, and that security staff shall monitor the site and off-site parking areas during any and all events. The next criteria that was met was the last criteria, which is the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of these LDRs, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved. Again, the variance we're speaking here is strictly the deviation of the hours of sale, and staff found that yes, the proposed request and variance will be in harmony with the general intent of the C1 zoning district. Staff conditions that I just read in your hearing stipulates that any consumption of alcohol should occur strictly within the premises, and furthermore, the conditions are intended to prevent loitering in vehicles or in person, on or off-site, and in combination with a musical and entertainment license will ensure that the proposed variance is in line with the intent of the LDRs. In conclusion, we found that the applicant has met 2 of the 6 criteria. As such, staff recommends 2 of the 6 criteria where 4 of 6 is required. As such, staff recommends denial. However, if the board moves to approve the applicant, staff includes 6 conditions which are mirrored from what I just read to you and from the special exception. So I won't read it again for you unless you require it. But these 6 on your screen conditions would be what staff recommends if the board moves for approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All right. Is the applicant here? Okay. You may come to the microphone, state your name and address, and add anything that for your case.
Good evening. My name is Mark Arthur Marshland. I reside in the property address or my personal address?
Your address.
13730. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the property address or the
Your address.
my address. 13730 Northeast Miami Court, Miami, Florida 33161. I am the applicant. First of all, I must say I was thrown for a loop. I didn't know that this was a denial. I would think that I would be given the opportunity to address any issue that was there, which, the only thing that we're asking here, I didn't understand at first the whole variance for a nightclub. We are a banquet hall. In order for us to be competitive in this business, you have to be able to open past 11. Other than that, you're only going to be able to do little kids' parties that are usually end by 8, 9 o'clock. If you want to do some of the better events, some of the bigger events, which are the weddings, the birthday parties, the grown-up birthday parties, and so on and so forth, we have to be able to stay open past 11 and be able to, close a little later. I never knew it was an issue with these situations, the parking especially, because I went and I was told that it was okay based on the parking we had. And if these numbers that I'm hearing are correct, you're telling me 50 square feet, I need 6 parking space. So you're looking at a place like Nomi Village, that would bring them at approximately needing 5,700 parking spaces, which I'm not understanding. We're asking for a variance, and it wasn't for a nightclub. It was because we were told once we stay past 11, we are called a nightclub. What we're asking for is to be able to operate past 11, like I said before, in order for us to stay competitive in this business. If we're closed at 11, nobody will book us. We have spent money on redoing the place. We spent a lot of money, and we're just asking to be competitive. There was something that was stated that the nearest venue similar to what we're doing is over 1,400 square feet away from us. That is not correct. Directly behind us is in a flea market parking lot on 7th Avenue. You have a venue called Low Key, which is approximately 120 feet, maybe 200 feet away from us. They're operating. Also, everyone around us that would, all the residential area is on the other side of the expressway, may say 100 feet away, 100 plus feet away, but it's on the other side, which is barred with the noise resistant and so on. Like I said, I'm thrown. I didn't know that every variance was going to be denied. I don't know. I am really, really thrown for this. And what we're asking for is a variance to be able to stay competitive, to be able to stay past 11 o'clock, to be able to serve alcohol and whoever's throwing their parties to be able to do what they need to do. I am invested in North Miami. I own 2 residential properties. I am a minority owner of a business you guys heard a variance for last time, which is the studio. So I'm just asking, please. I don't know what's going on. Like I said, I was really thrown for a loop, and I didn't come prepared for denials. I even asked if there's anything that I need to do because I don't know the process. I was told that everything was turned in on time, and even as far as the parking, I was told last week about the parking, and I have people who were willing and ready to give me parking spaces, but I was told it was okay. And then now I come here and I hear this again. Like I said, I'm just thrown for a loop. So I'm at you guys' mercy. We've spent money. We've been paying for this property for, it costs over $4,500 a month to pay between the rent, light, and so on and so forth. And like I said, we're not able to be competitive if we're not open past 11. We don't have any violations. We're not doing anything wrong. We've been doing everything the right way. And even when we do ask for a special exception for the nights, we're getting it. So I don't understand, why now, if we're trying to do it permanently as opposed to coming for every event, I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm lost.
That's the recommendation, but the board will have to discuss, okay?
I understand.
All right.
Yep.
Mr.
I
Held, you
guess you
need?
might as well do the public
Public
hearing.
hearing.
And
Yes,
I think
I'll
we both
op-
have things that we want.
Okay. I will open public hearing. Is there anyone here for or against this item? This is your opportunity to speak. All right, I'll close public hearing. Our attorneys,
Ladies first.
you may sit down.
I can sit down.
Yes.
Oh,
Just wanted to put it on the record that I did confer with staff on this item. As you can look on the presentation as well as in the staff report, when we were talking about specifically the distance separation variance, listed 1,430 feet from a similar use and used a banquet hall as a similar use. But if you look, since the special exception use that's being applied for tonight is a nightclub, the proper distance separation analysis would necessitate and have to include similar uses that are a nightclub use. So if you look on the PowerPoint presentation on the slide for distance separation, there is an establishment, The Cave, Miami, which is listed, which is much closer, and which was approved by this board as a special exception use within the last year, I believe. And there is also, if you look at the staff report that shows the parking lot, I believe the intent of that slide was to show you the parking lot. south of that parking lot is the low-key hookah lounge, which is also a similar nightclub use within several hundred feet of the establishment. So did want to update the board to those modifications to the staff analysis.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
So, Madam Chair, I have a few alternative ways of looking at some of the criteria that have been evaluated that might help the board either understand or understand the point of view of the applicant, and possibly some alternative conditions that could mitigate, for example, the parking requirement. So staff assumes that there is the potential for non-private events, and then imposes a parking requirement before those events ever, the likelihood was ever actually occurred or realized. And it probably is impossible to enter into a parking agreement for an additional 246 parking spaces. There is the flea market next door, and I don't even know that there are 100 spaces there. So within the distance of a permitted parking agreement, the applicant will likely not be able to provide that parking. So an alternative way of looking at this is to impose a condition that prohibits events that would involve ticket sales to the public or opening it to the public, and require that the only kind of events that could happen are those where the lessee of the establishment for that night commit to not selling tickets or advertising the event publicly. And we did this sort of thing in Miami Beach, where opening it up to the public through some sort of public announcement was not permitted through any medium at all. So
Post it on
assuming the private event nature of the establishment is protected that way, there would not be a need to impose the parking requirement for public events. Anyway, that's one alternative. And that, on the special exception analysis, would modify that third criteria from a no to a yes if the private nature of the events were maintained. In addition, as to considering whether special exception would provide an appropriate use in the area and not substantially injure or detract from surrounding properties, the first sentence says, in principle, the proposed nightclub appears isolated from other sensitive uses. And then it shifts to the distance separation variance for analysis. And I think it's just important to look at the context in which the establishment is located and the hours of operation that we're talking about, from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. No religious establishment, no school is going to be operating at that time, and the residential uses on the other side of 95 are clearly not going to be affected by this use, considering the impact of 95. So that would also change the conclusion of that criterion from a no to a yes. If you go to the distance separation questions, again, looking at even assuming that there are other uses in the area, if the board were inclined to consider this as a permitted use, it would be operating differently than the other uses that are open to the public if it truly is a private venue establishment. So in a sense, it could be distinguished that way, and it seems to me that two of the criteria would then be changed from no's to yeses and permit the granting of the distance separation variance. And as far as and I can go through them in detail if you like, and as far as the hours of operation, of allowing the alcohol beverage sales from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Similarly, the uniqueness of this establishment would allow that use to be permitted and not be in conflict with other uses of a somewhat similar type. And my review of the criteria is that 2 of them could also go from no to yes and permit the granting of that variance as well. So you can have discussion, and then if you have any questions
Yes.
for me, I'd be happy
We
to
will.
add.
Board discussion. Yes.
If the applicant wouldn't mind going back up to the podium, have several questions.
After you have some questions as well.
Okay. So one thing you mentioned was that your business plan was to be able to hold events and be able to be open late. Is the intent that you would that would be more focused on private events, or?
It would definitely be more focused on private events, but at the same time, you do have people that would rent it, that they rent it at their discretion. So one of the things that was mentioned was the cave, and what they do, they don't have enough parking space, but they do have a valet service. If that was to be the situation where the parking, we can also hire valet service to make sure that they're able to do that.
Okay, so that you answered another question I was going to ask
Yes.
as far as the parking. So valet is a potential, but
De-
also
Definitely.
with the flea market next door, is there potential to have some sort of parking agreement with them for?
Of course,
Yeah.
we have spoken to them.
you
But
have-
I was told last week, when I was told the parking would be an issue, I said, do I need to get it? I was told by Mr. Cameron, no, we're fine, what you got now, we're good. So that's the reason I didn't move forward to get anything. I was told that.
Okay. And then as far as the consumption I mean, how important is the 4 a.m.? If we were to come back to you and say that it's 11 to 2 versus 4, does that make a difference for your business plan?
I mean, 4 doesn't necessarily have to be 4. 2, because even if you're closed at 2, to get people out of there, you know, so on and so forth, 3 o'clock, I think 3 wouldn't be a problem. That hour should not be an issue. But, you know.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Shields?
Okay. You asked 2 of the questions I was going to ask. Last question, excuse my ignorance based off of the materials that were presented. Do you own the property, or are you renting it?
I rent it.
You rent it. How long is your lease term?
Right now, we're going to renew it for 5 years. We're in the
5
process of renewing it for 5 more years. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, the lease that is in the record has expired. Is that correct?
Yeah.
October 5th, I believe.
No. It's expiring the end of this month, but we're in the process of doing a new lease.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't have an ongoing commitment if the board were to?
No, we do. We have a commitment. We have, well, not signed, but we've been
Right,
communicating.
well, you have a commitment to extend the lease if you are able to?
Yes, of course, of course.
But if the board denies, then you're not obligated to pay beyond this month?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you look at the floors alone, we just did some Marvel floors, which I've spent about $20,000 on it. Like, I plan on staying there. Our plan is to make it something that is really nice, where people want to come there and do the nice weddings.
Okay.
I didn't know, you know, I have pictures on my phone to show you what the floor is, and we've draped the entire walls. We spent over $10,000 draping the walls alone. So, like I said, I was thrown for a loop because I honestly didn't know that I was getting a denial. I would have loved to have known, hey, this is what we have, this is what's going on, so on and so forth. I was told, hey, although we're going to present it on your behalf, you still have to go make your case. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. You know, I wasn't told that I was going to be like, hey, here, boom, boom, getting hit with all kind of jabs, left, right. I wasn't aware of those.
Okay, got it. I appreciate that, and I appreciate hearing how much you've invested in the property. A question for Mr. Held is, just for clarification, if we vote for, let's say, the 3 variances here, would those variances carry with the property even after his lease expires, and like, let's say a new tenant comes in? Would they be grandfathered into those same variances, or is there any type of way where we could restrict them just to this particular lessee?
So I'll answer both. So my understanding is the variance is run with the land. However, you can condition it that it's particular to this applicant. and any new tenant would have to come in to reestablish it. Do you agree?
The format and that of the variance that is recorded does have the name of the applicant. So, while it does, we do recognize in a general concept that variances do run with the land. The variance that is recorded by the city does list the name of this particular
Right,
property owner.
But you can condition it to make it an express applicability to this.
To the applicant.
Right.
In question. Okay, Mr. Palmer?
I can offer the board, may I offer the board some clarification on an item regarding parking? Previously, the applicant was advised that his parking as a banquet hall would be sufficient. After the application was circulated to the North Miami Police Department, upon the request of, upon discussion with Assistant Chief Blanchard, is when staff was advised that we should be considering the site under the lens of a nightclub parking rate rather than a banquet hall parking rate, at which point the report was revised to reflect the nightclub parking rate before the meeting.
Mr. McDermott has been waiting. Go ahead.
A couple things. And it revolves around a word that's in this document, which may solve some problems. Although, Mr. Held, your initial suggestion was in reference to private parties versus open parties. As you probably know, not too long ago, they had a private, quote, private party in which 200 people showed up because of this, and 2 teenagers were shot in Fort Lauderdale. Other than the parking issue and some of the other issues that he mentioned, that I don't know whether this, this whole thing is premature. As you know, we had a shooting over here recently at, which is the club that's now gone at Nomi. We had a shooting just outside of North Miami recently. I think, somebody said one time, nothing good happens after midnight. But 2 to 4, particularly with the surrounding clubs that already exist. He has a requirement in here that he say that North Miami Police may be part of the security. I think that the may should be a shall, to make sure that there's a police presence there. I've seen where private security does not work, and there's just something about having a police car there with officers there that deter the kind of gatherings that can happen through somebody calling somebody, oh, I'm at a party, come show up, kind of thing, in which several instances, including the last one I mentioned. I think that North Miami Police shall be involved. I think they need to be part of any security. And this is aside from the parking issue, which I think still isn't resolved, really. So that's my comment.
Mike, to your point, when I think about the application for, I think it was DeCave, maybe about a year and a half ago, I think those were the exact two pieces that were extremely important there. One, parking, they had a valet because they had a similar issue in that there were not enough spots, and that could be a big safety issue as well. And then also, I think we may have put an express provision that they had to have North Miami Police as a part of the security, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you had suggested it then, and we had voted for it. And I would definitely recommend that here as well, if we were to move forward.
My only concern, I guess it's the wording. Yes, we've had businesses that were nightclubs that came in front of us, but I'm sorry, what's the name again?
The Lux Place.
No, your
Mark Arthur.
Okay.
My name. Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Mr.
Marcelin.
Okay.
Yes.
Is different because he says that he did not intend on this to being a nightclub, but I guess the application come as such because of other things. Mr. Marcelin, I just wanted you to know, when you say private events and people come and they lease the facility, they may lease the facility, but ultimately, you assume the responsibility of
course.
what happens there.
Of course.
Okay, so if that is the route that you want to make, there should be contracts with,
Yes, we have
with
them.
whoever is leasing it. These are the stipulations, these are the limitations, you know, so that, and that security that you talk about, it's not gonna be left to them. It's really your security to make sure that everything is followed up on according to what is decided by the city.
Understood.
And one other question, is there food being served?
It, with our license, the way it is, it's prepared outside,
Okay,
and then they.
but people will have the ability to eat something,
Of course,
okay, because
Well,
we know what alcohol does on empty stomachs.
to clear it up, like there, for example, maybe in a month span, we may get 1 or 2 rentals that deals with, they may want to do a bottle, like a Haitian bottle or something of that nature, but for the most part, it will be private parties. It will be a birthday party, it would be a wedding. For the most part, that's what we're catering to. We're not catering as a nightclub. We're not going to be open as a nightclub. That is not our intention.
So the proposals that I guess the board members had, and you looking at the ways to address your parking situation, whether it be a valet, you first of all making an agreement with places that can hold, even if you have valet service.
Yes.
Where the car's gonna be parked, you still have to go with an agreement with someone that is close by.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Hell.
Are other establishments like this also required to have off-duty police presence?
We did.
I'll defer to our director.
I believe we voted for that for the Dick
Yeah,
Cave
we did. For the cave, we did.
nearby.
Good evening, Derek Cook, Director of Community Planning and Development. It is common to have nightclubs to have off-duty police officers as part of their security force. That is a common condition. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any
So-
other discussion?
So council, how are we gonna move on the votes?
When I discussed previously with staff, consolidating the hearings, we then also concluded that we would conduct votes in the order as they are in the agenda.
Okay.
And clearly, if one of them fails, like if the special exception fails, there's no need to go further on the others, is that right? Right.
Okay, the first
I-
one would, go ahead.
I think in general, I get the sense from the discussion we heard from half of the board here, that I think in general, we're maybe leaning towards trying to figure out how we can make the variances work under conditions that obviously mitigate some of the risks, safety risks
Okay.
that were presented. I think the first being parking. Obviously, understanding that though it's technically a nightclub, like in actual practice, it's obviously not.
Yeah.
It's a private event space that on occasion would need to go past hours. So that's something I think we would need to figure out as far as which
I
of the
think-
tests.
No, I was saying, I think Ms. Joseph's suggestion of possibly looking at 2 rather than 4, and I think that's what we did with others, because when you look at, with everything that's happening, I mean, Miami Beach and, you know, they were looking on reducing because they know that the longer you stay, the longer the problem tend to arise. So, you know, I think I'm open to 2 a.m.
I am as well. I think the other piece is obviously security, off-duty police officers, and something that's requisite for the event. And the piece that I want to just bring up again is the concern I have is if your lease lapses and you decide, which I don't want you to take your business elsewhere to a different city. My concern is that a new tenant coming in would want to essentially
thing.
take the variance and make this a bona fide nightclub. And I want to make sure that this variance, we're very, very clear that is explicit and specific to, obviously, your business as applicant.
Understood.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. McDermott.
So we should vote on these individually?
Individually.
Correct, and I can help you with the conditions on the first one, but I
Okay.
do want to clarify, I think I'm correct, on the time for whatever time you're setting. The way the ordinance is set up, it's sort of like two-step. The first one is purchase, sell, or serve, and it's at 1 a.m., and then consume is at 1:30, so there's sort of like a half-hour break. So I think just saying 2 may not be enough. You may need to clarify, is 2 when they have to stop selling and
When's
serving?
last call? And then
Right.
Okay, when's the
Right.
last call?
And then a half hour later for ending consumption.
And I think the other condition would be the use of a valet to address the parking issue.
Right, on the first, the special exception, which includes the parking requirement, I would almost suggest leaving in the parking agreement requirement and say, or providing a valet service with sufficient capacity to satisfy the anticipated parking need. Or some other language that.
Isn't there a concern that the 249? 246 spaces is a little overkill?
Sure,
Just
but that's
given,
why it
given the
would be in-
uses, even if he were to get a valet, you know,
Yeah,
there may not
that's-
even be that many spaces, I don't know, within like a 3 or
He
4 mile
indicated
radius.
So are you
Evan,
suggesting instead
He
of the
indicated that he
parking
could make a
agreement?
deal with the people across the street.
Right, but we also had
That
an
still wouldn't
understanding that they don't have enough spaces in and of itself to comply with
That
that
would be my
provision.
guess. Looking at an aerial photograph, they would not be able to. So instead of the parking agreement at 246, it would be to provide valet service sufficient to accommodate the event planned for any particular evening, something like that.
Can I ask
May-
one more question? What's the max capacity
That's what I was gonna
inside
ask.
for?
I believe 200 or something. I have to look at it.
Does staff know?
It's on the,
I don't know what the fire rating is. I would say for that size, you're looking at 200 to 300 being
Yeah.
the max.
I also have the parking space that we were talking about, it would be when we're doing these public events, correct? We're, meaning if somebody was to come, they rent out the venue and they wanted to do
Right, correct.
like a bottle or something, that's when it would be. But if there's a private party, we're still operating under the banquet hall where our parking would be adequate, correct? Because it would be almost impossible for us to hire valet parking for somebody if they're doing a birthday party, and it wouldn't it wouldn't make any financial sense at all. You understand? So the parking would come into place, as they stated, when we're doing the whole public event where.
I have a quick
So-
question for you. In that case, then, from your experience,
Mhm.
at what number of guests is the is would you say the threshold when parking starts to become an issue at your property?
But I tell you this, believe it or not, with the day and age of Uber and Lyft, you'll be surprised how many people don't drive, especially if they know they're going to be drinking. Me, myself, if I know I'm going out to the club, I will not drive. So I can tell you from myself, from experience, in this day and age, you would get approximately 50% of the people, you see an Uber pull up and drop them off.
So
What is the parking capacity now? How many
It's-
people?
15 to
There's 4 in the back that we can't technically use on paper because it's in the alley, but we have 11 that was given to us, 4 in the front, and the 4 in the back that we can't use, but they're also parking, they're street parking, which is there. We can't use that and say these are, our parking, but they're street parking.
So people parking there now when you have events?
So in the streets and,
Yeah.
yes, they're street parking.
So my question is, when it operates as a banquet hall, let's say it's a wedding
Mhm.
that's taking place. You currently don't have an issue with parking.
No, no.
So just for open
And,
events.
and also, we must take into consideration how many people go to a wedding by themselves. And if you are driving, how many people actually go out to an event by themselves?
Yeah,
So
council-
you're asking,
So
you know,
perhaps
Yeah.
your suggestion of perhaps just requiring valet for open events rather than
Every event.
private events? So
Right.
the valet would only kick in when there's an open event rather than a private event where it's more controlled as to who comes.
Which bring us back to Blythe's question again would be, Mr. Maswe has the ability to restrict the numbers at any time for any event
of course.
at the facility. So, given that, that's something we could look into, what do we think is a number?
Well, I don't think it's a number so much as it's private versus open. And I think council's suggestion of having valet, and I know that was your concern.
Okay.
And I think that that's a way to do it. The private event, that the valet would only kick in when there was an open event to try and give more crowd control.
Of course, and also the North
Yeah,
Miami
so it
Police
makes
and
sense
everything
for
else.
everybody,
Yes.
yeah. And the third condition would be obviously utilizing North Miami Police.
Right, you
That
changed,
would be my
Definitely.
3 conditions that I would,
yeah, in number
has to be
8, on
considered.
the special exception condition, it should say which shall include,
right.
rather than may include.
I have a question, sir.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
How many spaces in the street do you think, more or less, that you use the banquet hall? How many parking spaces do you think is available for you to use when you have events?
If they're all empty, you're talking from, if there's nobody there, because sometimes the guys who are there during the day, their cars are parked there.
Mhm.
The businesses, they're parked along the line. Approximately 10 to 15. Like if you line them up from,
Mhm.
we'll say 139th all the way down to.
Okay.
Okay. Would you like to make your motion?
Oh, yeah, my motion is to, in SC-11-22, to approve the application with the 3 conditions.
I have something that I would like to offer.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
Well,
sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry. I have a proposal. Is it possible to have, if we go forward and approve, to have this a 6 months trial to see how this works out with the parking and all these conditions?
You have the authority to impose that, in my opinion.
That would be a suggestion for me to.
okay, well,
For the
we have a
panel.
motion to approve by Mr. McDermott.
Um,
I need a second, and then we could have further discussion if you want.
Okay, I was going to accept her
Friendly
friendly amendment.
amendment, okay. All right,
Will
so-
you accept one other friendly amendment, that any recommendations that we suggest are germane to the applicant at this
Oh, yeah.
property?
Yes,
Thank you.
Definitely,
okay,
with all 3.
okay.
Okay, so, Mr. McDermott made the motion with these amendments
5 altogether.
all together. And do I have a second? Are
Second.
you?
Madam
Ms.
Chair,
McDe-
my apologies.
Ah.
And forgive me for the indiscretion in the middle of a vote. I would suggest that something that we have done when I was at other cities with the special exception, that if they have a new owner, that the new owner must also come to get a special exception if they want to continue his use. It just doesn't just continue.
Oh, I think that was Mr. Shields' motion.
Since that was yours, Mr.
Oh,
Shields?
yeah. If-
Forgive me, I was hearing for the variances for sure. I didn't hear for the special exception.
Yes.
My apologies for the interruption.
Not a problem. That was an amendment I had just made.
Yeah,
Okay, so now, yes.
Before you vote, I'd like to review the
Yes.
language of the
Okay.
conditions as we're modifying them. So I think it would
Okay.
help. So I'm drafting.
No, we can't vote yet because I'm still waiting for a second.
Okay.
Oh, I already
I'll-
seconded.
Oh, you did?
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Shield. Okay.
Is there a roll call?
Now,
Wait,
we're
no,
waiting on
he's-
Mr. Held.
Conditions.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
We're waiting on Mr. Held.
Okay. Ready?
Got your language correct?
Okay, so, number one, on the special exception, instead of the parking agreement, the applicant shall provide valet service adequate to support any non-private events at the establishment. Number 8, just changing may include off-duty to shall include off-duty North Miami police officers. A new number 9, this special exception shall be effective for 6 months, at which time the applicant shall return to the board for review.
Okay.
And number 10, this special exception shall be granted to the applicant only, and new owner and/or operators shall be required to reapply for a new special exception.
Very good. Thank you.
And the 6 months?
Yeah, well,
Just a question, the 2 AM, does that
Oh,
come on
that's
the
the,
next one?
the
or-
other one.
The other
That's,
one, the 2 a.m.
yeah,
And how many police officers are required?
it's
I'm
usually
sorry?
one.
Number of police officers?
yes, that's in here.
No, how many?
Now,
Do we
it
have a
would be
number?
one with their own security.
Okay, just to make sure we have enough.
Well, if they provide their own security, you're making sure that one of our officer is always on site.
This
That's
leaves
what
them
it
the
is.
flexibility to
Yes.
mix private plus off-duty.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that,
I
I'm
just have a
sorry.
question before, it's with the 6 months, so what are you looking for after 6 months? What are we coming back for to discuss?
I just
If
wrote
we've met
review,
those 3 conditions?
I think,
It's a staff review usually.
Yeah.
The staff will be reviewing, the conditions, they're living by them.
Well,
And
I
then-
actually had to return to the board for review.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just so I'm clear, so I don't get thrown with these uppercuts again, what are the criteria that
Well,
every,
I think
Compliance
they're-
with the conditions.
yeah.
okay, which is for every non-private event I've had valet,
Right.
All of them,
and
there's gonna be.
every event that I've had off-duty police, I just want to make sure.
You'll
So I-
you'll be getting the written version of it,
No, no,
but it's
okay.
to make sure that you're following with all of that. And if you're having that one police officer there along with your security,
Yes, ma'am.
they would know whether or not there are issues.
Okay.
And if there are no issues with them, then you'll be good.
I would think review would also include whether any police incident reports have existed and what the results of those would be.
Okay.
We've previously mandated that.
Yeah.
I would suggest adding that.
Say it one more time, sir.
My suggestion to Mr. Held's point was adding in the review that, any police reports that may have, been, or
So
let's say crime
return
reports
for-
that may have
for
occurred
review
at
of
the property
compl-
between now and 6 months.
Of compliance with conditions and,
Not to say that it would be an issue, just it would be something that we would put into
Because
consideration.
that would be putting on a lot on any venue. If you're telling me something happens, they go elsewhere, a mile down, whatever, they get in a scuffle, oh yeah, we just left there. That's, I
Well,
mean,
that
if
would
there
be-
were no reported incident, and that's why I'm happy that there will be police officers there. If there's no reported incident, You know, like, I wouldn't want everything to come, hey, that came back on us. It's just like me going to the Miami Heat game. I leave, I get in a fight. Oh, yeah, FTX Arena, they the ones that caused it because I had 2 drinks there. You know, so I don't want it to be a situation like that where we're stepping on eggshells.
I hear you.
Because, you know, that's not fair to us as a business. Then anything that happens in that surrounding could be blamed on us, and there's nothing we can do.
That would be
Like, I don't
part
want
of
it
the
to be-
board's review at the
Huh?
time. That would be part of the board's review, and your argument would be, well, that didn't occur at my establishment, that was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Well, I think,
Yeah, we have a motion and a second,
yeah, we have a motion and a second,
But
as amended.
as amended. Okay, roll call.
We have a motion on the floor to pass the special exception 11, sorry. We have a motion on the floor to approve the special exception 11-22 to permit a nightclub use, approved with conditions. Rosaline Philippe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Alina Medina,
Yes.
Blythe Pierre Lewis,
Yes.
Evan Shields,
Yes.
Lumana Joseph.
Yes.
All right, motion has been passed 6-0.
All right. The next one will take the V-19-22. That is the distance, minimum distance. And Mr. Held, are we going with the almost similar? Because I know there was items that you brought in terms of the distance, how we should
Right.
be calculating.
So, the conditions on page 7 of that staff report, I would change condition number 4 to, that's dealing with the North Miami police officers from may to shall.
Mm-hmm.
I think the rest of the conditions are fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Madam Chair, in V-19-22, I move to approve with the amendment that the verbiage be changed from may or shall be include North Miami police officers.
Okay. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Medina. Roll call, please.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the variance to the minimum distance separation for nightclub use, B-19-22. How do we vote? Rosaline Philippe,
Yes.
Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Alina Medina,
Yes.
Blythe Pierre Lewis,
Yes.
Evan Shield,
Yes.
and Lumana Joseph.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, that was approved with conditions.
Yes.
Motion has passed 6-0.
All right. And then the last item is V-20-22, and that's the hours for consumption and sales.
All right, and Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, in that one, condition number 6 would change from may to shall on the police officers. And then an additional condition where you are going to decide what hours you're permitting.
Yeah.
Permitted hours of alcohol sales or service shall be from 11 p.m. to whatever you decide, and consumption shall
Well,
be
aren't we looking at,
until,
we said,
there's like a,
What's the window in between half an hour?
yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
That's what
buffer?
the ordinance currently provides.
So if you stop selling at 2, but the
Right,
consumption till
consumption till
2:30?
2:30,
Is that,
something like that.
yeah. That's what I would suggest. That would be my suggestion.
go ahead, make your motion.
Okay. Okay. Make a motion to amend the hours of, for sales through 2,
Sales or
consumption.
service.
Yeah,
Right.
sales and
Sales.
service till 2 and consumption 2:30.
Is that a motion to approve?
Yes. motion to
Okay,
approve.
with
Oh,
those conditions.
with
And
the-
changing may to shall.
he's-
on-
Amazing,
I'm
man.
I'm so sorry. I have a question.
Okay.
This is for the alcohol. So once we're, let's say I know we have to stop selling that too, which I understand. I went to UF and it was always a time. So, but we're allowed to stay open till past when? Can we go
Until
Stay
till?
open.
4, but alcohol consumption would end
Okay,
at 2.
it's the
Last
alcohol,
call at
that's the,
2,
okay,
Consumption ends 2:30.
okay, all right, okay, that's fine. All right, thank you. Last call at 2.
Last call at 2. Trust me, by 2 o'clock, if they're not. I'm done with one drink, but let's go. I have a motion. Did we have a
second that.
second?
I second that.
Seconded by Mr. McDermott. Roll call.
We have a motion on the floor to approve with conditions the variance to the hours during which consumption and/or sales and service are allowed for alcoholic beverages. Variance B-20-22. All right, and Rosaline Philippe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Alina Medina,
Yes.
Blythe Pierre Lewis,
Yes.
Evan Shields,
Yes.
Lumana Joseph.
Yes.
All right. The motion for the variance has been approved or passed by 6-0.
Thank you. Have a seat.
All right.
Congratulations.
I wish you luck.
Congratulations.
Okay. And bring all the stars to North Miami. All right, next item, V-18-22, which is a variance to permit a decrease in the required side yard setback for a utility shed at 1970 Northeast 124th Street. Go ahead, Mr. Palmer, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, V-18-22, a variance to permit a decrease in required side yard setback for a utility shed at 1970 Northeast 124th Street. This is to be reviewed under the criteria set forth in Section 3-606 of the LDRs. A bit of the project background for the board. The applicant is requesting a hardship relief for their existing utility shed at the property located at 1970 Northeast 124th Street. As the LDRs permit unattached accessory structures to be erected in all residential districts according to Section 5-112 of the LDRs. It prescribes that the side setback of the utility shed shall match the setback of the principal dwelling. In this case, the principal dwelling is set back 7.5 feet from the east property line, and therefore, accordingly, the utility shed should be set back the same. The applicant is seeking a variance to permit the existing detached structure to deviate from the side yard setback and be located at 1.9 feet from the side property line. It is noted that on June 6, 2022, the applicant was cited for the construction of a shed in the rear of the subject property, which has led to the occurrence of this variance. With regards to physical context, the property is 11,250 square feet, and the site contains a single-story home totaling 2,528 square feet. In the surrounding the site is located in a residential area, but specifically lands to the north includes single-family home. To the south, we have the canal, Little Arch Creek Canal, and townhouses in the R4 multi-family district. And lands to the east and west of the property are both in the R1 residential district and both have single-family homes on their property. On the screen, you'll see the site plan submitted by the applicant. Highlighted in the red box is the existing shed as it is today with the 1.9 feet setback. Further up, you'll see the single-story dwelling at 7.5 feet setback from the east property line. Staff reviewed this application under the criteria in Section 3-606 and found that the applicant met 3 of the 6 criteria. As done before, I'm going to ask the board, would you prefer I read all criteria or the 3 that were complied, that we found compliance? Sorry, perfect. For the record, could someone say it on? The three?
You could go ahead and read
Thank
the
you.
ones that were met.
Perfect. So on the screen, you'll see them highlighted. I'll read them in your hearing. The requested variance maintains the basic intent and purpose of the subject regulations, particularly as it affects the stability and appearance of the neighborhood. Staff found that yes, the property is zoned in an R1 district, and the proposed variance will permit an accessory structure 1.9 feet from the side setback. This equals a 5.6 foot reduction from the side yard setback that is permitted in the LDRs. The existing accessory structure does not deviate from the single-family dwelling use of the property, nor does it increase the density of the property. The utility shed is also 120 square feet, which is permissible, which is otherwise permissible when properly set back. The requested variance would not negatively affect the stability or the appearance of the neighborhood. Criteria 5, the variance requested is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, structure, or building. Staff found that yes, with regards to the existing structure, the requested variance will allow the applicant to legalize it through this BOA hearing. Without the variance, the applicant would be required to remove the structure. And staff is of the opinion that the most reasonable course of action is through legalization or through this BOA hearing. Item number 6, criteria number 6, the granting of this variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of these LDRs, and such a variance will not be injurious to the area involved. Staff found that yes, the granting of the requested variance for a 5.6 foot reduction in the setbacks would not be injurious to the area, and the requested variance will legalize the existing non-conforming structure and give our building department the opportunity to review the soundness of the structure through the building permit review process. Accordingly, staff has found that the request satisfies 3 of the 6 requirements, and in light of these findings, staff renders no recommendation to the board. However, should the board move an action of approval, staff is asking that the following conditions be included and that the applicant receive all permits for the after-the-fact structure.
Okay. And before I call the applicant, I just wanted to ask, what material is used to use that shed? Is it what do you call it? Blocks?
Just,
CBS, that's the word.
I'll have to ask the applicant to clarify that it's not included in the application.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Okay. No, I think he was sworn in. He was here.
Were you sworn in already?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. He was. Okay. Please state your name and address.
My name is Perry Lanaway, and I'm the owner, and I live at 1970 Northeast 124th Street. We've owned the property for 7 years. When we bought the property, the shed was there, the original shed, in exactly the same place as where the current shed is now. When Hurricane Irma came through, it did a bit of damage to the shed. And over the course of a couple years, the roof sort of rotted a bit and it was looking pretty bad. So we're having some other work done in the property, and I got my GC to, start fixing the shed up. And so he did probably a bit better job than what I thought he was going to do. And he's basically, he's done a good job in the shed, but it's the code compliance came through and sort of deemed that, hey, this isn't this isn't a sort of as the shed as it was. It's a new shed, and so he said, "Hey, look, we've got to go through the variance process." So we went through a process of getting the neighbours to sign the variance on both sides, and the neighbour across the road. I had a permit helper help me through that process, and we got those signatures, but then we were told that we had to go through this process to get the variance. So here I am.
Yeah. And that's to make sure that the shed doesn't wind up in someone else's yard the next hurricane.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
the canal.
No, the shed is
Or the canal.
10 by 12 and 9'7" high. It's very well built. It's compliant. We'll go through the whole process of getting it permitted, and it now makes the property and the neighbourhood look a lot better as well than what the previous shed was.
Okay.
Well, welcome to North Miami.
Thank you.
All right. I'll open public hearing. Anyone here? All right. I'll close public hearing. Board discussion.
I have a question. Hi, Mr. Lanaway. Is your shed primarily for storage?
Yeah, we have put an air conditioner on it, because I do have some wine. I'm originally from New Zealand, so I brought some wine over from New Zealand, so we're putting that in there, but then we've got a lot of boat, equipment, as well for,
Okay,
and so wetsuits and that get moldy in the humidity, so we put an aircon in it, but yeah, it's for storage
it is,
and,
okay. And the reason I ask you is just to, be mindful of noise with your neighbors, so
Right.
that's why,
yeah.
but thank you. Mhm.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, in item V-18-22, move to approve the item with the conditions set forth by staff.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the variance to permit a decrease in the required side yard setback for a utility shed located at 1970 Northeast 124th Street. That is variance V-18-22, approved with conditions. How do you vote? Rosaline Philippe,
Yes.
Michael McDermott,
Yes.
Alina Medina,
Yes,
Blythe Pierre Lewis,
Yes.
Evan Shields,
Yes.
Lumana Joseph.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has been approved and passed 6-0.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Hell.
I'd just like to do a clarification on the special exception that was previously approved.
Mhm.
So the condition that I read was a special exception shall be effective for 6 months, at which time the applicant shall return. But I think it is better read as the special exception shall require to be effective beyond 6 months for the applicant to return for review.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So I just
Whatever
wanted-
you think, Counsel.
Okay, thank you.
Old business?
Personal privilege?
Yeah?
I think he's still here. We are pleased to have Councilman Jacques Despinos.
Is he still here? I don't
think
think
he's
so.
in the back
He
somewhere.
left.
Anyway, Councilman Jacques Despinos was here, and I was glad to see him. He was a distinguished councilman for many years in North Miami, so if you're back there, Jacques, welcome.
He should be home. Thank you. New business? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Enjoy your evening.